Hey guys, I'm Dr. Paul, and today I want to talk to you about cortisol levels and what cortisol levels have to do with weight gain. So a lot of people are stressed out, have high stress levels in their life, they have high levels of anxiety, and they sleep poorly. I've just described like 90% of people I think these days. There are a lot of reasons for that, and we'll go through some of that and what to do about it. But first of all, let's talk about cortisol and what it is and how that can cause some weight gain. One, cortisol is a stress hormone. It's very useful in terms of managing that human fight or flight sort of response, and it allows your body to do incredible things. However, when cortisol is elevated too high for too long, we get all sorts of hormonal problems. The number one hormonal problem that I see with cortisol elevations is going to be just insulin resistance. Your cortisol levels are high for a long time, your insulin levels will go up, you'll become insulin resistant, and you'll constantly store fat. So I see that commonly in people who are overweight, who have sleep apnea, who are very stressed all the time. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Secondly, from a testosterone standpoint, especially for you guys out there, constantly high cortisol levels, particularly from sleep apnea, will just kill your testosterone levels. It will lower your testosterone. There's great studies on it. So high cortisol, low testosterone, high cortisol, high insulin. Also, we've all been up all night long for whatever reason, and we tend to make poor dietary choices when we're sleepless, when our cortisol levels are high. We're stressed. We want comfort, so comfort food comes in, right? So we tend to eat more carb heavy things, just have poor dietary choices. Our portions are bigger. We want comfort food, and those cortisol levels are high, right? So managing those stressors, managing sleep issues, I think that's really important from a cortisol management standpoint. Also, those who have high cortisol levels tend to have higher blood pressures, right? So some of that's from the high cortisol, a lot of it's from the high cortisol. A lot of it very commonly is going to be from sleep apnea, which is directly related to cortisol, right? So sleep apnea is at nighttime, you're not breathing well. It typically happens most commonly just from extra tissue around the neck area. If you're not breathing well at nighttime, your brain thinks it's suffocating like all night long. So that's a constant fight or flight sort of sensation your brain has all night long, producing lots of stress hormone, lots of cortisol. And that's where I see a lot of this come into play really in practicality in the weight loss portion of what I do clinically all day long. Finding those folks who are at risk for sleep apnea, if they're tired all day long, they've got high blood pressures, particularly in the morning, their blood pressures are more than 140/90. They've got, I already said, headaches. They may snore loudly. Their significant other may say, "Hey, you snore all the time," or wake them up when they're having some pauses when breathing, when they're sleeping. Those are all sleep apnea symptoms. The easiest way to check for sleep apnea is going to be with a home sleep study. Okay, so a home sleep study basically is like a monitor that goes around the chest. There's a couple of little oxygen prongs that go in the nose. It's very easy. It's a one-night deal. Basically, you would turn that into the organization you get that study from after one night, and they'll be able to tell you if you have sleep apnea or not. So that is way cheaper and way easier than going to a full-on sleep lab where you would go spend the night in a hospital. Like, I don't know anyone who likes doing that kind of thing, and it's more expensive. There's lots of reasons that a home sleep study is going to be better for looking at for sleep apnea. And I'm spending so much time talking about sleep apnea because there's tons of sleep apnea in people in America, honestly, and that sleep apnea is going to be responsible for those high cortisol levels, which is going to be like part of the vicious cycle of just weight gain. High cortisol, poor sleep, high cortisol, poor sleep, and you're going to throw in like testosterone issues and insulin issues into the mix, and it's an issue, right? So definitely deserves talking about. So what do we do about this? So, treating sleep apnea is super important. I talked earlier about just people who are constantly stressed because of family issues, things that are just way outside of your control. There are some things that can be done with medications. I will talk a little bit about some supplements. I like ashwagandha a lot. I'll put a link for ashwagandha, the one I like to use off of Amazon in the description here. Good data on ashwagandha just as a supplement for reducing anxiety, reducing stress. It's a helpful thing. So in addition to that, even those of us who don't have sleep apnea could oftentimes sleep better. We tend to have a cell phone in our face, which usually has some form of social media on it at nighttime, and that is not helping anybody to sleep. You're going to look at someone who's on the opposite side of the political aisle, you're going to see something infuriating, and you're just not going to sleep. And there's also just the issue of blue light coming into your eyes. Blue light from your cell phone is definitely something that is not helping you sleep. So by avoiding that, the blue light, avoiding the social media at nighttime, you should sleep better. It's going to help you. So one thought process on that I really like is the use of a Kindle or an e-reader at bedtime. It's not going to have the blue light. You're actually reading a book on that e-reader. A lot less stimulating than surfing through social media. So I like to think of e-readers or Kindles as like the Nicorette of the cell phone world, right? It's helpful to get away from that. If you don't sleep well, and there's just lots of folks out there who don't sleep well, there's a book called Sleep Smarter. I'll put a link for that in the description below. That was a really helpful book for me, looking at just various ways that we can look at our sleep hygiene, like how do we plan for sleep? We need to look at sleep, exercise, and diet as the foundations of our health, right? So there's lots of things you can do and not do prior to going to bed that are going to help you to get that restful sleep you need, manage your cortisol levels, and not only have a better life, but also achieve the weight that you're trying to achieve. Other issues on cortisol management and sleep. How do we check for high cortisol levels? So there are a lot of folks, particularly in the functional medicine world, who will do like a 4 times per day cortisol level in the saliva. So like you spit into a little tube and they'll measure the cortisol. And like a huge percentage of the time, people just screw that test up. Honestly, it's just not processed properly. It's not reliable. Honestly, I mean, from my standpoint, from a really practical standpoint, like anxiety, stress, both those things you can and cannot like directly control in your life, and sleep are going to be your best ways to manage cortisol in your life. And there are some supplements like ashwagandha that are really helpful. So hopefully this is helpful for you. I think the management of cortisol is super important when it comes to weight management. And the last thing I do want to say about cortisol, before I forget this, is that there are a lot of people, and I'm not going to be sexist here, but particularly women, who are like, who historically have just eaten very little. Like their weight loss strategy has been like, I'm just not going to eat very much, and that's going to help me manage my weight, which works in the short term. But in the long term, what happens is your body, like God made your body really smart. Okay. And so when you eat less calories, like your body is able to go, I'm just going to burn less calories. And it does this in two methods. One, it's going to be stress. So it's going to increase cortisol. So that's going to contribute to like some of the negative cycle we talked about earlier in this video. And then the other thing it does is just really ratchets down your thyroid function. So I talked a little bit about thyroid function in a previous video or in a different video, but people can acquire or get low thyroid function, low metabolic rate, and weight gain issues just from not eating very much over time, from chronically undereating. And that chronic undereating issue, let's say you're eating less than 1,000 calories a day for years, that becomes a difficult thing to treat. It can be treated. We can do that. And we can talk about that in a different video, but just that chronic undernutrition, high cortisol, low thyroid, and the problems that come with those things. So hopefully this has been a helpful video. Click that next video I'm putting together, and we'll talk about further causes of hormonal issues that tend to cause weight gain. Thank you.